which I'll talk about in the upcoming video, where I'll explain, more details of Crash Bandicoot to Smash, 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 Crash Bandicoot to Smash. With the very recent release of Pyra Mythra onto Smash Bros. Ultimate, not only did we get fresh new characters into this rather huge fighting game that is certainly one of the most, if not the most influential fighting game in the world, but it also means that we are now back to predicting officially of who will be the next fighter in this Fighters Pass 2. Now, there are 2 slots left, so the chances of certain characters getting into the game may either increase or decrease because of the number of slots we have left, and of course, other variety of factors for the character in particular. But you know who I think is one of the more influential / popular choices left to be added in for the game? Crash Bandicoot. Obviously my bias is out there in full front, as you might know me for, of how much I really do appreciate and love the Crash Bandicoot series, and its potential prospects into Smash Bros. Has always been a topic of interest for me. So, today I'm going to talk to you about none other than the potential idea of Crash Bandicoot to Smash Bros. And a good number of factors that I believe could potentially play out in his favor. Enjoy.
Well, if it isn't Crash Bandicoot, welcome.
For starters, you might ask, why should Crash Bandicoot even be considered for Smash? Well, for starters, number 1, he's an iconic video game character whose first 3 games not only put a lot of eyes onto the PS1 at the time, but also to how influential his games were to the console and the video game market as well, to the point where we even saw him become the unofficial mascot for the PlayStation while being talked about alongside his other competitors, Mario and Sonic. Also, number 2, the whole point of Smash Bros. Is to bring these icons together under one roof and duke it all out in this house-packed fighting game that will probably never reach to this height ever again. Like, who would not want to see Crash Bandicoot fight against the likes of Mega Man, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong, Cloud, etc.? Who would not want to see those hypothetical matchups if you're a Crash Bandicoot fan, or you're just someone that just wants to see Crash Bandicoot in Smash Bros.? The third reason is how his moveset can work into the game. And of course, we do have to remember that the GOAT, the legend, the myth of legend, and whatever else relates with the word of legend, Masao Sakurai, that man. Sakurai wants to make sure that the moveset is faithful to the character at hand, and if it's something that could be done as well. And when you look at Crash Bandicoot's potential moveset that could maybe happen, it most definitely can work without a single doubt. Like for example, you can have his down smash to where he throws down TNT or Nitro Crate, or maybe both, as like an RNG type of deal, to get an aerial jump off the box. Or instead of that, you can maybe use his jetpack, the same one from Crash 2. And for his side special, it could be a combo with his, spin that everyone knows and loves, but at the end of the spin, he ends it out with a roundhouse kick to the face, and depending on how high your stock is, it could work in a way like a baseball bat, to where, like I said, depending on how high your stock is, the harder the hit will be. But do not worry, folks. Even though we will not go too in depth about this moveset in today's video, we will eventually do so in a full-on dedicated video of the topic. But for right now, we will be going with more of the speculation burger type of kind. Anyways, the fourth reason as to why Crash Bandicoot should be in Smash Bros. Is because of his appeal worldwide and other media. He is obviously really popular here in the United States, but let's look at his popularity in other places like Canada, Europe, Japan, Korea, and more. Especially in Japan, where the famous Crash dance that we all know and love was actually originated from Japan due to the marketing efforts of Sony Japan around the time that Crash 1 was releasing in the late 90s. So, it goes to show you of how he wasn't this simple character for the Japan market. He was a character that was rather influential, iconic, and definitely a character that the Japan market really loved. And let's look at his jump across other media, such as his subtle references, or maybe sometimes a few actual appearances full on. Like for example, Jimmy Neutron, Johnny Test, 007 GoldenEye, The Simpsons, Jack and Daxter, Ty and the Tasmanian Tiger, and many more other appearances in other media across the internet, TV shows, and other video games. Now, if Crash Bandicoot wasn't this influential character, would he be getting a lot of these appearances? I don't think so. Crash Bandicoot is just as influential, like Mario and Sonic, when it comes to how the games were received, the series reception, and the passionate, long-lasting fan base that came along with it. Now, let's get to the fun part of this entire video, and I'm sure most people that aren't supporters of Crash to Smash are probably wondering the same thing. What evidence, what hint, and what chance does Crash Bandicoot have of getting the Smash Brothers at this point with 2 DLC slots left in the second Fighter's Pass? Well, he certainly does have quite a bit of evidence going for him that could maybe spell out his potential inclusion into Smash Brothers. So let's get right into it, folks, and I'm excited to get into the main fray of things. So, let's start off with number 1. Number 1, Insane Trilogy / Nitro Fueled is on the Switch. Both games are available on the Nintendo Switch. While new games never usually mean a character is coming to Smash, it does mean that the franchise is fresh on Nintendo's mind, and it could be a great third party for Nintendo to promote on their console alongside other great games of the Switch. Also, if you guys remember, when they announced the Insane Trilogy port for the Switch in a March 2018 Direct, the tagline reads, "Gaming icon crashes Nintendo Switch," which goes to show the importance and influence that Crash Bandicoot has with his games and his character, to the point where Nintendo literally called him a gaming icon. Gaming icon. That's a pretty big deal and a rather huge association for the character of Crash Bandicoot. But again, it's the importance, it's the influence that gets him that stigma of being a gaming icon, along with the fact that his games got him to that position. And his character is something that Nintendo is going to want to capitalize in many ways that they could, as far as, marketing on the console, and maybe bargaining Activision to see that, hey, can we get some more of those Crash games down the road for the Nintendo Switch, and of course other future Nintendo consoles if they so please. Now, if you think this would be the last time they give Crash Bandicoot that sort of stigma of being a gaming icon, well, as far as like mentioning that stigma alongside his character, oh boy, you're surely wrong about that, because as recently as in January 18th of this year, Nintendo uploaded a video detailing some of the major franchises on the Nintendo Switch. The only third-party franchises that made it into the video were Spyro, Sonic, somewhat of a lesser extent though, if I do have to point out, and of course, and more importantly, Crash Bandicoot. It's once again proving that Nintendo knows how influential and iconic Crash Bandicoot is as a video game character, and it would be a missed opportunity, all bias aside, for Nintendo to not add the character alongside others of the very same caliber that are in the game. Number 2, Activision pushing Crash as a gaming icon again. With Crash Bandicoot back into the main fray of things since the Insane Trilogy announcement back at E3 2016, Activision has been going all out with trying to bring back Crash Bandicoot into the spotlight that he rightfully once was before. And it's very clear that he's back at that throne again. We have been getting loads of games such as Insane Trilogy, Nitro Fueled, the mobile game coming out very soon later this month in March, Crash Bandicoot 4, and most importantly, the Crash Bandicoot 4 Switch port, the PS5 port, the new Xbox port, and PC. And of course, gotta mention Nintendo Switch in case I didn't mention that yet. Or if not, consider that as a double mention. Anyways, so that's all that has ever been happening for the game department ever since the Insane Trilogy came out. And of course, the obligatory mention of merchandise, which I think has been really fucking nice, considering the amount of stuff that we're getting in this merchandise, that gives us a lot of options for us to choose. If we want to support our Bandicoot for a t-shirt, toys, a plushie, statue, stuff like that. So I really do appreciate the variety of things that we can get for his merchandise. But anyways, with his 25th anniversary also coming up this year, or it is this year actually. It's not just coming up. Even though technically you could say coming up because his actual birth month is in September. But anyways, with his 25th anniversary this year, along with the fact that Activision also said this in their press release when they announced the Crash 4 ports to other consoles. So let me bring out this important quote, and I quote, "Fans will also be on the lookout for tons of fantastic festivities from Activision Blizzard Incorporated, aimed to engage Crash Bandicoot fans throughout the year." And it's very highly likely from this part of the press release that I just mentioned that not only does Activision want to use the opportunity to promote the 25th anniversary of Crash Bandicoot all over the place on like new merchandise, on the games, and more. It's also highly likely, with a good amount of potential, that Activision will want to again use the opportunity to potentially bring Crash Bandicoot into one of the most influential and highly character gathering games ever, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That'd be a pretty damn nice way to, really celebrate his 25th anniversary as a gaming icon by literally putting him into a game that is filled with gaming icons. Pretty good anniversary if you ask me. Number 3, leaked Activision document, 5-year plan. And speaking of Activision once again, most of the Crash to Smash and Crash fans in general should be very familiar with this certain document, the 5-year plan. Now for those wondering, what is this 5-year plan, you might be asking? Well, let me explain. The 5-year plan document in particular documents Activision's plan for Crash Bandicoot within the 5 years as documented. Now, what is in this 5-year plan, you might be wondering? Well, according to what we know, the 5-year plan has the following things documented. 2017, Insane Trilogy. 2019, Crash Team Racing Nitro Field, mobile game. 2020, Crash 4. And most importantly, 2021, Crash and Smash. Now, obviously, the 5-year plan is not confirmed 110%, so we shouldn't take this as a for sure thing to happen. It is also alleged that the document detailing the plan in question was leaked online, and certain insiders have claimed that it's real. Which is rather interesting to hear, but it's always important, folks. It's always important to have a wait-and-see approach, because stuff can change, and confirmations could turn into a deconfirmation. But for those that support the 5-year plan, including myself, but I remain cautiously optimistic as to whether or not the entirety of the plan is legitimate or some of the stuff is just not true. But it's still rather encouraging to hear that the 5-year plan does exist, but the contents within is just what we really have to figure out. But before I do go on to the next point, I do want to point out something. 2019 actually didn't say Crash Team Racing Nitro Field. The reason why I added Crash Team Racing Nitro Field into the 2019 slot is because that was the game that came out in 2019, and same thing for the other years. 2020 turned out to be Crash Bandicoot 4 and Crash on the Run. Even though I didn't mention it by name, you could kind of already tell that it is the mobile game in question of the 5-year plan. So kind of obvious to really point out, but I just wanted to make sure some people knew that in case they were wondering, oh, well, you didn't mention that it was these games all along. So there's the warning there. So let's get on to another point. I do find it interesting that the earliest mention of this 5-year plan was actually back in 2018 when it first surfaced, when Licensing Sourcebook, which is a European magazine that covers the licensing industry, featured a passage about the feature of Crash Bandicoot. And here's a very important quote from the magazine, and here's the quote in itself. The new game has had a huge success at retail with no marketing spend, which is referring to the Insane Trilogy. Next, it will be going broader, Switch to PC, which is referring to the fact that Insane Trilogy were getting ports in 2018 to the Nintendo Switch and PC. And there will be another game in 2019, which, again, is referring to Team Racing Nitro Field. Activision have a 5-year plan for this, and GBI is delighted to be fully on board for all products. Excuse me. So, and this is from the Licensing Sourcebook magazine for those of you wondering again. So, I just want to point out something before we move on. So, it seems like based on that quote alone from the magazine, during the section in which they were talking about the future. Which, by the way, in case you were wondering, that this was really the only thing that they really mentioned for his future. So there wasn't really like anything else that was cut off or whatever. But I do want to mention something. I find it interesting that the important passage literally confirms 2017, 2018, even though I didn't really mention it. But we could consider that as like a small little attachment to the year 2017, because technically it wasn't like a brand new project overall. It was just something that was an attachment because it was just Insane Trilogy again, but just ported on the consoles. So we're just gonna add 2018 onto this just to, just so people aren't confused. But 2017 and 2019 are pretty much confirmed to be real, because obviously 2017 is the Insane Trilogy release, but 2019, they literally said in the fucking passage that there'll be another game in 2019. And what came out in 2019? Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. So it's not hard to suggest that they did plan this out in 2018 before they actually revealed it in the Video Game Awards, which obviously it would be a no shit type of deal, because obviously some companies plan their games early, but sometimes most other companies don't. So I think the first half of this plan is legitimate. So 2017 is real, 2018 is real, 2019 is real. The mobile game part of it is definitely real because it's referring to Crash on the Run, which is coming out later this month, and 2020 as well, because 2020 did have Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time come out. The only year that's up for debate at this point is 2021, because let's think about it. Crash Bandicoot 4 came out literally in October, so I don't think they're gonna go that quick to a brand new game just like that, unless they're gonna go to Wumpa League, which has been a very up and down type of deal. And I say up and down because we don't know if it will happen. We don't know if we don't know what will happen. It's just very uncertain for right now. So I just think 2021 is gonna be interesting as to what they're actually gonna do for basically Crash Bandicoot as far as the year is concerned. Now, of course, some people might be wondering, well, they might just be doing the same thing as far as like what I mentioned earlier with 2018 being like a small little 2018 being like a small little attachment to the year 2017, which is true, but I do want to point out something. They literally specifically mentioned the entire year 2021 as its own entry, so I don't think that very is true. I think it's going to be a major project, but to what extent of a major project it will be, we have no idea. We don't know if it will be like a brand new game, brand new side game by like another studio. We don't know if Crash and Smash might be the thing. We just seriously don't know. All we know is that 2021 is on the 5-year plan, but to what extent of it, who knows? But anyways, if you think that was the only point of the 5-year plan I would be mentioning for this part of it, well, I wish, but of course my theorizing brain went to work and I found some more stuff. So there's another point to go along with the 5-year plan. So let's get right to it, folks. Because on March 3rd, 2021, so yes, literally not that long ago, in this current month, the official Crash on the Run Twitter account uploaded a video consisting of tweets from fans excited for the launch of the game. One of the tweets, interestingly, brings up the 5-year plan rumor, and it's rather interesting that they featured a tweet with the mention of the plan, because if this was something that was easily fake, or something that they just don't want to mention, they very much easily could have picked another tweet. So the fact that they didn't, though, leads me to think that they are a couple of things. Number one, I think they are at least aware of people talking about the 5-year plan. Number two, I think this gives the plan a little bit more credibility, because why would Crash on the Run? I don't know who runs the Twitter account. Like, I don't know if people from King are doing it or Activision, but regardless of who's running it, I'll just say this. If the 5-year plan was easily fake, like it was like easily something disproven, why would a Crash Bandicoot official account, or one of the official Crash Bandicoot accounts I should say, why would they just mention something that's easily fake? Like I said, they very much easily just could have picked another tweet. So based off of that, I just think it gives it a little bit more credibility if the same brand is mentioning it in one of their platforms. You may disagree, but that's fine, but I just think it'd be stupid if Crash Bandicoot promoted like a very fake conspiracy or theory, whatever, that's, just not true. I think it's real, but the only thing that's really left for debate at this point is to really find out of what is actually in the 5-year plan, which, again, we don't know. My guesses from earlier are just based off of speculation and based on what we know from that licensing sourcebook magazine quote, which I think is legit, but, who knows? So I just think it gives it a little more credibility. That's all there is to it. But like I said, whether or not it'll lead us to the full 110%, clear of whether or not this plan is actually legit, we will have to wait and see yet again, because that's always important, because you just don't want to be disappointed that quickly, I would imagine. Number 4, Crash Bandicoot's Japanese appeal. For a Western character like Crash Bandicoot, his popularity in Japan is not only rather important, but rather influential within the video game market, especially for his potential inclusion in Smash Bros. So it would not be hard, but rather quite easy for Japan to get used to the character if he does somehow get included. But what are some of the examples of his influence in Japan, you might be wondering? Well, let me tell you. Number 1, as commonly pointed out, Crash Bandicoot has a more cute design in Japan in an effort to appeal to the Japanese audience. Here's the image of what he looks like on the Japanese cover of Crash 1. Still pretty good looking, and those teeth. Those teeth, man. I'm telling you, they love the teeth over there. But anyways, point number 2. The iconic Crash dance, which I mentioned earlier, that Crash performed after he completes a level in Crash 2 and 3, actually originated from the Japanese commercials for Crash 1, as we've already mentioned. But once again, thank you Japan for coming up with these awesome gems. But not only that, but the Japanese Crash 2 and 3 commercials actually has a guy in a Crash costume dancing with numerous Japanese people. Do you know how massive that is for a Western character to not only have his or her game released in the Japan market, but not only that, but to also have a character in a full-on fledged costume with the eyes, the ears, the hair, the shoes. I mean literally everything, even the glove. Like, do you know how important that is for a Western character to gain that much of a popularity and marketing pleasement from a very important market of the video game industry? It's like I said, the influence of Crash Bandicoot and his popularity, it netted him that opportunity. So needless to say, based on what I saw from the numerous advertisements of his old school games during the time in Japan, I think they're fucking incredible pieces of work of media and just marketing. I think they're just incredible. And I think it's a massive boost for Crash Bandicoot's popularity, like I mentioned, not only to the marketing perspective of Japan, but just also his popularity as a character as a whole to other non-United States, countries. Number 3, remember Fake Crash, guys? Yes, Fake Crash, which is Crash Bandicoot, but not really Crash Bandicoot. Fake Crash is just called Fake Crash. I don't know why I said Bandicoot. Fake Crash was actually originated from a bootleg Crash plushie that was actually made in Japan. I actually never knew that before I looked it up doing research of this video. Like, I think it's just fucking fascinating that one of the characters in a fucking series actually came on about just because of a bootleg international plushie. That's actually pretty cool. That's like, I can't get over the fact of how awesome that is. Maybe that's just my bias speaking. I don't know, but that's just great, man. That is just awesome. I think it's just purely fascinating. Number 4, Crash Bandicoot also has his own theme song in Japan that is used to advertise his games in Japan. So if you're wondering of what the advertisement was really like, let me show you at least one commercial of how it sounded like. Or at least a theme song, not just the commercial, but like the theme song of it for a few seconds. So if you're curious, here you go.
Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot.
like I said, guys, that is just, I'm telling you guys, the advertisement marketing of Crash Bandicoot Japan is just fucking incredible. And here's a fun fact. If you play the Japanese version of Crash 2, you can actually listen/watch to the full song itself. And I do have to say though, just to expand upon my review of the song, as I just mentioned after the end of that video, it's such a catchy ass song. It's really catchy, and the lyrics really relate to Crash Bandicoot's character. So the lyrics are great, the music is very catchy, and the dance coordination is just incredible. So I think this is probably one of the best advertisements, not just within the United States, but overall for Crash Bandicoot's franchise. It's just an awesome song. I just don't understand how like Crash was able to really attain such awesome song. So I definitely like to see this a little bit more often in the United States market. Like, I know it's a Japanese song, but I think they could definitely make it work over here. They just have to like figure it out. Anyways, point number 5. Crash Bandicoot was the first ever Western video game to receive an award in Japan. Now you might be wondering what award you might be talking about. Well, I'm referring to the Gold Prize Award. And for those of you wondering what the Gold Prize is, it's basically a video game award in Japan for sales of over 500,000 units for a game. And that's incredible for a game like Crash Bandicoot, where he wasn't really a Japanese origin game. He was a Western video game character that just so happened to crash, literally, no pun intended, into the video game market of Japan, and nothing really changed because he still had great amounts of success. And speaking of great amounts of success, here's the last point. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped was the only Western-made PS1 game to actually reach over 1 million sales in Japan. That's a lot of Wampa fruit, folks. That's a lot of Wampa. Like, that's just simply amazing. But anyways, just to conclude this fourth point, Crash Bandicoot, once again, is no stranger to the Japanese market, and he has incredible success there for being a Western character. And he's very influential enough to the point where I'm 110% certain and very, very sure that most people from there would actually love to see Crash Bandicoot in Smash Brothers if it were to happen within the last 2 slots. But as always, folks, and just to be humble about it, we will have to see. Number 5, Nintendo characters and Skylanders. Now you might be thinking to yourself on this one, what the hell are you talking about R39 with this one? Well, sit back and see for yourself on this one, folks. For those of you that have heard of and played Skylanders Superchargers, you might or would have known that you could play as Donkey Kong or Bowser in the game. Which, first of all, it means we have Nintendo characters in the Activision game, which is pretty darn rare to say. But not only that, it also means, more importantly, that the relationship between Nintendo and Activision is good enough to the point where Nintendo would approve of their own iconic characters to be in a non-Nintendo game. And not a whole lot of people give this relationship a lot of stock, which I find kind of weird, considering how Reggie explained the process of how this came to be for Donkey Kong and Bowser to appear in Skylanders Superchargers back during a 2015 interview with the Wall Street Journal. Here's the interview. Activision came to Nintendo at the outset of Skylanders' development 4 years ago. So there was always this thought of, wouldn't it be great if Nintendo intellectual property could somehow be integrated into the game? Jump forward to last year's E3, where we introduced Amiibo, which is Nintendo figurines that work with its games, and we articulated our strategy of having figures that could work across games. At the same time, Activision shared with us their vision for their next installment of Skylanders that would include vehicles. And that's when the conversation became serious. Now, some people might bring up the very, very obvious fact that this does not preclude to anything of Crash's Smash, or even Crash himself for that matter, which is true. But what it does do, however, is that it gives us a good glimpse, once again, that both Nintendo and Activision could work together on a project where both companies are on the same wavelength and the willingness to make it work, which is what this interview basically told us after the first approach by Activision themselves for their project. So, why wouldn't Activision not do the same thing, or even Nintendo in that regard, of the potential inclusion of Crash Bandicoot into Smash Bros? I have no doubt in my mind that if both companies could work together on adding Nintendo characters into Skylanders, but there's no big reason, especially when Nintendo has worked together before with some other companies that are just as stingy and protective as Activision when it comes to Smash Brothers. The same can't really be done for Smash, or the same can be done for Smash, I should say, excuse me. So, I don't know, I just don't think that when people say, oh, Nintendo will never work with Activision, I'm like, guys, Nintendo has worked with some pretty interesting companies, I'll just put it that way. So, them working with Activision is just like, not a big deal, folks, and that should never be the reason for Crash to not be in Smash, unless somehow these two companies can agree to a deal, which, you know, if that were to be the case, then that's fine, because that's part of business. Sometimes you just don't agree on every deal, but that's just me. Or that's not just me, but that's just usually how things are sometimes. That's just the way of things. But let's go ahead and move on. Number 6, Activision's awareness of the Crash to Smash hype. I'm a little surprised that this isn't talked about as much as I thought it would for some reason. But, you know, hey, that's why I'm the one that'll be uncovering this hidden gem once again, even though I'm not the first one to really mention it. Anyways, during an Activision live stream of Crash Bandicoot 2, the Insane Trilogy version of course, when someone asked if they would allow Crash Bandicoot into Smash Brothers, they said the following.
Would you guys be down to let Crash join Super Smash Brothers? I mean, that's like way out of our control, but that would be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be amazing.
As you can tell by the clip there, the people in question are not the higher-ups from the company that will be the ones to negotiate with Nintendo on that matter. But the fact of the matter is that both employees of Activision signaled that they would not only allow Crash to be in Smash, they also said it would be awesome for him to be in the game. Of course, it doesn't mean it's 110% guaranteed to happen, but when people from the company are at least open to the idea and would love to see it happen, that signals that the company, to a good degree, would want to see their character making the Smash Brothers. So this interaction right here from the live stream is one of the more positive signs you can find for Crash Bandicoot to potentially be in Smash Brothers. Like, I know there's been some of the companies that have probably done this before, where they somehow tell you, oh, the character's not coming, but yet that character still came. So maybe this might not mean anything, but it still is a positive interaction when, you know, representatives or employees of the company, you know, literally say on stream or on a tweet or written statement that, hey, we basically would love to see this character in Smash Brothers. Like, that literally puts the character's chances, well, maybe not chances, but it gives a little more optimism for people supporting a certain character to get into the game. So props to these dudes for giving us that bit of a feel of optimism. Very appreciate it, guys. Number 7, Crash Bandicoot and Nintendo on Twitter with Tony Hawk. On February 22nd, Tony Hawk tweeted this, and I quote, "Just heard, #Crash 4 is coming to new platforms, and I'm kinda jealous. Hey, at Crash Bandicoot, can you hook at Tony Hawk the game up?" While also saying, if this works, I owe at Crash Bandicoot a customized skateboard, maybe on old school shape for those big feet. Prompting a response from the official Crash Bandicoot Twitter account, which says, and I quote, "Whoa, who's this? JK. Let me see what I could do. Thinking face. Activision. Any help?" And out of complete nowhere, with no one really expecting it, Nintendo throws their hand into the ring of this conversation by adding, "Come on, Crash, make it happen for at Tony Hawk the game," end quote. Which is something that the Nintendo account very rarely ever does, as far as to my knowledge, of course. And by the next day after this conversation took place, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Switch port was announced. Now you might be thinking right now, once again, what does this have to do with his chances in Smash? And here's my response to that. It has nothing to do with that in the sense of the topic of the conversation at hand, which was about Tony Hawk asking Crash Bandicoot for help to get his game on the Switch, with help from Nintendo and Activision. But what it does tell us outside of that are a few things. Number one, a massive reaffirmation that, once again, Nintendo and Activision's relationship is good enough to the point where Nintendo would allow their characters, Donkey Kong and Bowser, to be in an Activision game, and Activision would allow their game, Tony Hawk, to be on Nintendo's console, the Switch. Number two, as far as Crash's involvement is concerned, it shows that Nintendo has a good enough relationship and good standing with Activision and Crash Bandicoot to the point of Nintendo literally encouraging Crash Bandicoot in an open, positive interaction of pure marketing to help Tony Hawk get onto the Switch. While it is not about the topic of him to Smash Brothers, every partnership must be at least in good standing for both Nintendo and Activision to strike a deal where the orange marsupial spins his way into Smash. So it's very encouraging to see this as far as the, relations between both companies and the character itself, as far as that is concerned. So I think this point, along with the last point, which was about Activision's live stream clip of their employees literally loving the fact that the potential idea of Crash Bandicoot to Smash Brothers, I think it has been one of the strongest 2 points. I personally think. Now some people might think, I disagree because it doesn't really mean anything. True, it might not mean anything, but when you have people from the company, and when you have the same company literally out there in a good marketing tool, using that to not only promote the character brand, but to also help out another character brand, why would that not show that the marketing of the character is at good hands? Is it perfect? Probably not, but it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. And maybe that's just the blind fanboys optimism talking, but when I look at point number 6 and when I look at point number 7, I'm just giving a bit more affirmation that Crash Bandicoot is in the right hands as far as I thought the company really cares for the character. Now, of course, we can all give Activision shit for all the other dumb things that they have done, but we have to give them this. Ever since they've had Crash Bandicoot, as far as marketing is concerned, they have pretty much, as far as my opinion, they pretty much have handled them with care, and they really knew how to bring him out there and just let people know that, hey, this guy still exists. Buy the game. He's still the same old marsupial that you knew from years ago. So I just think point number 6, where, when you look at it, it's just awesome to see, point number 6 again being both employees of Activision signaling that they would not only allow Crash Bandicoot to be in Smash, they would just also love it. And point number 7 is literally, Activision, Nintendo, and Crash Bandicoot in a open, positive marketing interaction, helping another character brand, Tony Hawk, get his game onto the Switch. Now, of course, before we do move on to the last point, I do understand that it is purely just marketing as far as that conversation is concerned, as far as Tony Hawk getting onto the Switch, because I'm pretty sure that was already planned ahead of time. But you do have to understand, they didn't have to go for that conversation. They only did that because it was marketing, and it's a way to get people's attention. And what better way to get people's attention than to have Crash Bandicoot, Nintendo, and Activision, and Tony Hawk in a conversation setting? Wouldn't you not want to see that conversation actually take place in person? I know I would. But anyways, let's get on to the last point of this video. Number 8. Crash Bandicoot was coming to Smash as Challenger Pack 5 until he did not. If you guys remember January 16, 2020, Byleth was announced as Challenger Pack 5. And you might be wondering why I'm even mentioning this. Well, before that was known, it was originally leaked at the time as a rumor that Crash Bandicoot would be the last slot revealed in the first Fighter's Pass. But as we all know by now, that was not the case. However, the leaker then claimed that Crash Bandicoot would be coming later, as opposed to coming in as Challenger Pack 5 as originally stated. Of course, this is probably nothing more but a typical leaker backtracking very quickly on the point that they were wrong on. But I do want to point out something. Steve in Minecraft. You might be confused as to why I'm even mentioning Steve here. Well, the reason being is very simple. Steve was also a subject of many, and I say many many leaks that suggested that he would come eventually into the game. And while he certainly didn't make his way into the game after all that time, it does bring the potential idea that those same leaks that have claimed that Steve would come into Smash, it gives the same optimism that those leaks could come true for Crash Bandicoot. Like, the same kind of fortune could, happen for him. So, also, along with the fact that the leaker did say that Crash Bandicoot would come in eventually come in later, it does strengthen the idea that certain leaks can take some time before they are officially materialized and panned out for inclusion into the game. And this isn't to put too many eggs into the leaker's basket and to give him too many credibility when they really deserve. It's to give the same optimism that Steve had with his leaks that said that he would come into the game, that eventually took his time. I just want to give that same optimism that he had to give to Crash Bandicoot as far as within the year 2021 is concerned. Now, before I do end the point, I am aware that, it was like a 5-year negotiation or something for Steve to be in, but that doesn't really disprove my point, because people will still leak the character, well, quote unquote leak the character anyways, and eventually some of those leaks came true. So I'm just gonna give myself a little optimism that it'll be the same for Crash Bandicoot. Now, I'm also gonna keep it at the point to where it's at a realistic term. Like, I'm not gonna believe of every leak that has Crash Bandicoot in it. The thing I'm looking for is legitimacy, what the plan says, and how credible is the person. If the person isn't credible, then they're not worth the time. They're not worth the full-on discussion. But this person I was mentioning in particular did predict a few things that were right. So, while it may not be perfect, the person did at least get a few things right. So, but overall, I just think that if we were to take that same optimism that we have for Steve, for his many leaks that, before he came over, when he had his leaks, and then he eventually did came over, the same thing could happen with Crash Bandicoot. I'm just being a little bit more open about it. And that is pretty much all the Crash to Smash energy drink I have left to consume for right now. I might have missed some other evidence for his potential inclusion, but I figured to mention at least the more popular points that fans already know or might not know for Crash's potential appearance in Smash Brothers. So we will leave it at the ones mentioned in this video for now. But of course, if anyone does want to share any other legitimate evidence or hints that I may have missed today in today's video, then let me know in the comment section down below. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's episode of Richie Slots. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and don't forget to also share this video with family, friends, and other Crash fans that like the series, and also to those that want to see him in Smash Brothers. And let me just tell you guys, before we do go, because I know some people are probably wondering, R497, what do you think is going to happen with the last two E3 slots, or last two Fire Pass 2 slots? Well, here's what I think. I think Crash Bandicoot has a stronger chance of being the E3 reveal, but if for some reason he's not the E3 reveal, who's to say that they wouldn't reveal him during his birth month? I mean, like I said, his birth month is in September, and the Fighters Pass is supposed to be done by December. So it's not that unrealistic to suggest that maybe he'll be the last one if they want to do that, just so they can celebrate his potential inclusion around his birth month, which is September. So if it happens in September, great. If it happens during E3, great. As long as he's in it, I'll be happy. But that's pretty much it as far as, my prediction as to whether or not he'll be either CP11 or CP12. And as far as who will be the other character alongside Crash, that I do not know. Maybe it'll be someone like Master Chief, Rayman, or another Sonic rep, or maybe Doomslayer, or some other dudes. As long as it's a series that has little to no representation that actually deserve to be in Smash Brothers, then that's all I care about as far as that's concerned. But with that being said, guys, that is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching today's video. I'll see you guys next time on the next YouTube video, on the next Twitch stream. And as always, wash your fucking hands, wear your goddamn mask, and we'll get through this together. Alright guys, your boy R497. Have a nice day, have a great night, whatever time zone you're in. Have a great night, everyone. R497 out.